Hi, everybody. Okay, I'm Jay Sears. I'm the SVP of Marketplace Development at the Rubicon project. And I'm going to talk about 6 questions for the media owner around automation. So if you are a media owner, can the media owners raise their hand? Okay, so these are good questions to ask your own organization to see if you're properly prepared for the unstoppable march of automation and to be prepared in a very positive and proactive way. And if you're on the ad agency or advertiser side, I think these are good questions for you to ask your trading partners, the media owners that you do work with, to see if they're ready to embrace this, this new wave of automation. Okay, so we're going to go through these 6, and then if you guys want to do questions and answers, terrific. All right, so just very quickly about the Rubicon project. We are headquartered in Los Angeles, California. We have operations across the world, across EMEA, across APAC, and across the United States. We are an advertising automation platform. So when you've heard about real-time bidding and programmatic and direct order automation, we have over 500 media owners around the world. Okay, so this would be companies like News Corp, companies like Viacom, companies like The Guardian and FT. And they use this system to manage trading with agency trading desks, with DSPs, and those companies connect here to do this automated trading as well. In fact, there are over 100,000 advertiser brands that trade on our platform every single day. So it's very likely if you represent a brand or you're an agency and you have a client that we see activity from you in digital advertising and digital display and mobile, which is where we're active today, every single day. Okay, so enough about Rubicon project. If you have other questions, we'll cover that at the end. So if you're a media owner or if you're dealing with media owners, what are 6 questions that you should be asking to see if everybody's kind of prepared for the day? So it used to be when media owners negotiated trading agreements with their agencies, they really only talked about unique access to media, that the agency wanted to turn around and tell its advertiser about access it had to a piece of media that maybe others didn't have. But the second piece that now has become equally important is unique data, first-party data. So what does that media owner, so what does a Viacom or a News Corp or a Financial Times know about its customer that maybe through a deployment of a DMP, a data management platform that has been attached to a marketplace like Rubicon Projects, that it can leverage on behalf of the advertiser. And if you go back a couple years ago, in the sphere of automation, when we were just talking about the auction market, so just talking about the remnant market, performance-based advertising, this was not terribly important, right? But what's happened in the last 2 or 3 years is automation has now made not just the bottom of the market addressable through auction mechanics and real-time bidding, but that automation layer has been brought around also the direct buying and selling of inventory. So that exists today. And because of that, there now, with automation, is still more and more discussions about both unique media and unique data assets. Okay? And we just did this on each of the 6 points we're going to talk to you about just to show you some of the big media owners across the world and how they're thinking of some of these items. So, for instance, you can see here, this is John Slade at the Financial Times, and they've deployed a DMP, data management platform. They've attached it to the Rubicon project platform, and then they bundle both media and data assets together, and they'll do that both in terms of offering prepackaged inventory to the advertiser, but also in response to the automated equivalent of an RFP. So the advertiser might have a particular need, and it's answered again not just by the piece of media, but by the unique data asset that's owned there. And what's interesting is this is moving very fast. So one of the questions, if you're a media owner or dealing with them, you might ask is, have you done a DMP, data management deployment, and have you attached it to a platform like Rubicon Project? Because if they have, then you can start to do some of the things that I'm talking about. So, like, to give you an example of how quickly this is moving is the FT has done this. So we were just in London last week talking to some of our customers there. The FT has done this. The Guardian has been doing this for a long, long time. Hearst, their international division, is in the process of deploying a DMP in the next couple months. And then you have more emerging markets, and one of the interesting things that's happening in some of the emerging markets, and the example I could give you is Czechoslovakia, but you can see it in smaller markets around the world, is the development of cooperatives. So publishers are getting together, kind of pooling their inventory and telling a story both around inventory and unique data assets to answer competition from the biggest companies in the world like Google, and Yahoo in those markets to make that addressable. So in the Czechoslovakian case I gave you, in the Czech market, they've just launched this cooperative exchange and will be looking at adding a DMP. So it's either kind of has happened or is in process. The second thing to ask is, are you doing pricing segmentation across channels as a media owner? And this, I think in most worlds, would be maybe painfully obvious. But again, remember, most folks' experience in automation is through the auction market, through the bottom of the market. And again, it's changed now, right? So you have the auction piece, and you also have the order automation piece. And so what you're seeing is tremendous organizational change, both in buying organizations, agencies, and in the media owners themselves, to figure out how to unify the approach in terms of, hey, how am I going to manage my channels? How am I going to segment all this? What's going to be hand-sold directly? What's going to be through an order automation piece? So still premium, still leveraging unique media, still leveraging unique data assets, and what's going to be kind of towards the bottom and really just take advantage of marketplace and auction mechanics. Okay, so this is another example. This is a division of USA Today that manages some of their sports properties, and you can see here that Chris has a strategy across all channels, right? Okay, the third area is the media owner engaged in direct order automation? And if they're not, they are at this point behind the 8 ball and behind the rest of the market. This is a big area of expansion we've seen in the last couple years, and people are now using trading systems like ours to put the equivalent of their media kit, of their editorial calendar, of their publishing schedule in effectively electronic packages that then can clear in real time and can leverage the type of assets we've been talking about, like unique pieces of media and unique pieces of data. So here's some examples from what Viacom and this is actually Tribune company in Chicago on the bottom. But unique media, and I think Lori's quote here is quite interesting, is there was a point in time where a lot of media sellers only saw automation and programmatic as relevant for their unsold. and remnant inventory. And you can see here, we've obviously made believers of these folks, where they're now looking at IAB rising star units, rich media, and then some of the first-party advertising we talked about with the FT as an example. And the other thing that happens with order automation is in addition to the programmatic piece, so in addition to this piece that most people seem to now understand, that you're basically doing high-scale computing trading of inventory on an impression level. In addition to that, what you're now seeing is a really elegant workflow for both buyers and seller personas. So people say, oh, well, who do you compete against? Who does Rubicon Project compete against? And we like to say we compete against a little bit of inertia. Phone calls, fax machines, emails, unstructured Excel documents, and PowerPoints. And that what you have here is an elegant way to do the part of your planning and then also your execution. And the direct order automation piece I'm talking about here, if anybody's curious, during Q&A we can talk about individual markets and kind of where they are. But UK, very progressive. France, very progressive. The Nordics, extra credit, very progressive. Australia is the one market across APAC that's super progressive, and the US market as well. And of all those, we probably call out maybe UK and France as being a year ahead of the rest of the market. And in fact, if you look at a market like France, you also see the phenomenon of that cooperative project that I talked about coming together in France. There's one called Laplace Media, where a lot of the leading publishers have pooled their inventory together to present a powerful answer to some of the biggest digital companies there. Okay, the fourth question to ask is, are you using transparency to your advantage? So again, there's some history here. Like, as a media owner, if you are, you have to stop hiding in automation. So again, go back to the early days of automation when it was just the auction market and you had a lot of fear and loathing about what was going to happen. How is it going to impact my pricing? How is it going to impact my sellers if I'm a media owner? How does it impact the planning and buying mechanics if I'm running an agency? And so the way people initially kind of got into things very cautiously was by masking, hiding behind a lot of this technology versus using the technology to show off kind of the very best, and aggressively using platforms like ours to manage their channels, to manage the direct and the indirect and whatnot. And what changed that allowed that to happen is, if you look at the innovation of real-time bidding over the last 5-6 years, what you're able to do through a platform like ours, and these are insights that we actually give our media owner customers, is actually track the chain of custody of an individual ad, from advertiser to agency to the trading desk to the piece of technology they might be using to deploy that ad into a marketplace like ours, and then on into the media owner. So is that going onto the Guardian or to the FT or to a Viacom property? And for each of those, what does the pricing look like? And the media owner can control and say, hey, when I see Telefonica, when I see Vodafone, I want to see it through this channel. Maybe I don't want to see it through this channel. And all those are levers that can be controlled. And as buyers and sellers in the room, those are conversations you ought to have with one another, knowing that full well all this can be kind of agreed upon, negotiated, and then managed. And because as a media owner, you have over 100,000 advertiser brands here, you can see both the activity of that core group of advertisers that always will make or break your year, but you can also see the activity of the rest of the market, right? So you can see as every year you have a couple maybe leave from your core group and a couple come back in. And so you can understand some of those marketplace mechanics that would otherwise be very hard for you to see. Okay, and there's just a little bit more from Rob. This is just super, super important. Because, again, we used to only be talking about the auction market and used to only be talking about remnant or unsold, a lot of automation historically was taken care of, was managed by the ad operations group within the media owner, right? So it was really viewed as a back office type function. And now, as the automation layer has been wrapped around the direct order automation, it's more and more become fully ingrained into the revenue organization, right? So what you want to know is, has the media owner aligned its sales compensation, right? Because if those sellers, right, the men and women who have traditionally hand sold, if they are not properly compensated for pieces that go through automation, I can tell you right now you're going to have a problem. And the final piece that you need to understand and think about is, are you managing a unified marketplace? One of the things that's happening on the buy side, on the agency side, is the same sort of thing is happening on the agency side. So the automation specialists on the agency side are more and more sitting with the more traditional trading directors in the operating agencies to negotiate the entire trading deal, which now includes automated access. So it's all about managing a unified marketplace, and I think more and more the conversation becomes unified. It becomes about the special, the custom content, the sponsorship. It becomes about the direct order automation, and that same discussion is even going to include a conversation about the auction. And it's all about making sure that we facilitate and deepen that, that trading relationship. And one way to think about it, I'm not going to go through this, but is think of this reverse triangle. So how does automation figure into your pricing segmentation and kind of go-to-market plan when you're a media owner? And if you can't comfortably fill this out, you really need to be thinking about what you're doing, because there are a lot of tools that you can leverage today. Okay, so those are the 6, and I'll leave you with this quote from John Wren at Omnicom, where he says he holds the long-term belief that all traditional media, or a lot of traditional media, will get purchased through this automated way. So agencies want to, again, negotiate that unique access, that special arrangement with the media owner for their client, right? And they can only do that through an effective negotiation. So, so we look at the automation as an enabler of those people. Now, that said, the people that push paper, that send faxes, right, that email back and forth today, that collate things by hand, they're in some trouble. And you need to retrain and redeploy them, or you will have to find a different set of folks. Like we like to say, hey, the 24-year-old media buyer is going to become a mathlete, a math expert, where it's a different state today. Thank you so much for coming today.